Hey guys, how's it going? So I have terrible news for you this early Friday morning. The U.S. Senate Parliamentarian has ruled against the repeal of NFA items like the Hearing Protection Act and the Short Act, saying that it has failed the Byrd Rule. A lot of you probably already know what the Byrd Rule is by now, but I'll get into that in 1 second. But this sucks, and I'm pissed off. And for those of you that have been following the channel for a while, I'm not completely surprised. I knew this Byrd Rule was going to come into play. So right now they're in the middle, in the home stretch actually, of trying to pass this budget reconciliation. Now it did pass the House. It's in the Senate right now. And this is a way that they can pass this bill on just a 51 vote threshold in the U.S. Senate, where most of the time the filibuster comes into play. And trust me, we're not going to get these NFA repeals through the filibuster. So this has been the closest we've been in 91 years to repealing parts of the NFA. Now, the Byrd Rule was put in effect by Senator Byrd, like in the 1990s, a Democrat, a real winner, by the way. And it basically says that the parliamentarian gets to decide if these items are germane to taxes for this budget bill. Now, the Senate parliamentarian technically puts this out as a suggestion, but as I'm about to tell you, this has become precedent. And there's a chance it could be overridden, but as of right now, just looking at history as an indicator of the future, it's very unlikely. So the Hearing Protection Act, which was passed by the House in the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill, and then the Senate added the Short Act, which would remove silencers, otherwise known as suppressors, short-barreled rifles, short-barreled shotguns, any other weapon from the NFA. Now, this is totally crazy that these got shot down by the Senate parliamentarian. Well, for two reasons. First of all, I thought this was America. And I thought Congress makes law. And I thought we fought a revolutionary war against the British to get away from Parliament. But yet here we are in the year 2025, and a parliamentarian is going to foil repeal of most of the NFA, at least as of right now. Now, this literally happened in the middle of the night, like after midnight, and I'm recording this video at about 5:30 in the morning. So this is all developing right now. But here's the thing that's really crazy too. Think about this. To register an NFA item, to legally own one, you have to purchase what's called a tax stamp. So how the heck, literally, can a tax stamp not be tax related? No, the NFA is the epitome of a tax. And don't just take my word for it and the obvious that it's a tax stamp, but the Supreme Court literally decided back in the 1930s that the NFA was a tax, and actually that's part of the reason it's been allowed, and I say that in air quotes, by the courts and all this, to stand all these years, is because it was looked at as or determined as a tax rather than out and out gun control, because the logic, at least as they purported it, look, I think all gun control is unconstitutional, period, obviously. But they said, well, hold on, it's not gun control. You can still own these items. The NFA is just simply a tax, which Congress has the right to levy taxes. And now the parliamentarian, who it appears is mostly in charge of the Senate, says it's apparently not a tax because it doesn't comply with the Byrd Rule, which requires it to have to do with budgets and taxes. Yeah. So that's the deal. A little more in depth for those of you that want to know just a little bit more. The parliamentarian's name is Elizabeth McDonough. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but who cares? She's been the Senate parliamentarian since 2012. This is back when Harry Reid was the Senate majority leader. Now, can she be overridden? Yes, because actually her ruling is just a suggestion, but here's the problem. It's very rarely overridden. In fact, the Senate Majority Leader John Thune was just speaking out earlier this week because the parliamentarian, by the way, has gutted most of the Trump agenda in this so-called One Big Beautiful Bill, just literally overruling the crap out of it with so many things. But I've been waiting, for this. And she's ruled against this too. But Thune said earlier in the week, he said no, he's not going to overrule the Parliamentarian. And if I'm paraphrasing him correctly, he said something to the effect of, if he overrules the Parliamentarian, that's going to break precedent so hard, it would be akin to getting rid of the filibuster. Now, he's the Senate Majority Leader, which means for general purposes, he's the top senator. However, the Vice President, J.D. Vance, presides over the Senate. He's technically the one in charge of the United States Senate. And in fact, in 1975, the Vice President did actually overrule the Senate Parliamentarian. So we're talking like 50 years ago is the last time this happened. So it's extremely rare. Look, I'm keeping my hopes up. And I will say, due to a bunch of other measures that have been overruled by this Parliamentarian pursuant to the Byrd Rule, there are starting to become lots of calls from Republicans and Republicans on Capitol Hill alike saying they want the Parliamentarian removed. There's beginning to be a little bit of a surge of people trying to pressure the Senate, and even some senators speaking out saying maybe they do need to overrule her this time. Now, I don't know if they're more worried about overruling her on these other provisions and things like that, or if they would want to get in there and overrule her ruling against the HPA and the Short Act and all that. I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine, but as we sit here right now at about 5:30 in the morning on June 27th, 2025, well, we used to be the closest we've been in 91 years to removing more than half of the NFA. But, and look, I hope this changes. I'll be on here to celebrate if or when it does. But as of right now, it looks like it's all been shot down. This is breaking here in the middle of the night from GOA. Here's a quick statement they wrote. The Senate Parliamentarian has decided the language to remove NFA taxes. Just think about that one more time. Taxes and registration requirements have failed the Byrd Rule. GOA is reviewing all options with our congressional allies and will keep our members aware of the ongoing situation. So the Byrd Rule says it has to do with taxes. For it to pass the Byrd Rule, it's literally a tax stamp. And we're literally sitting here being like, where am I? What's going on? I thought I was in America. And who's the Parliamentarian? And yeah, for those of you that are new to the channel, welcome. Glad to have you here. For those that have been around for a while, I've been talking about this for a long time now. Ever since this passed the House, I said, guys, look, the Parliamentarian is going to come and play here. And don't think for 1 minute we've got this in the bag. I was hopeful. But quite frankly, I'm not surprised. I'm going to talk more in depth about this because I have a lot more to say about it. I'm not happy whatsoever. This is literally terrible. And join me on my live stream tonight at around 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. This and every Friday night, we're going to talk all about it. I encourage a bunch of you to come in the live chat because I'm sure a lot of you are pissed off too. Let's hope J.D. Vance can come in and overturn this stuff right now. Okay? Crossing my fingers. I'm not trying to be too black-pilled on this, but it's hard not to be, And I think a lot of you do know. And a lot of you are just as ticked off as I am. Alright, make sure you follow me on X for updates. Check out the links down there in the description if you'd like to help support the channel. See you on the live stream hopefully tonight. And I'll see you all again soon. Alright, thanks for watching. And have a good one.